And we are live, and welcome to the Nooner with Dave LaMont. I've got a very dear friend standing by to join us in a couple of minutes. Radio's own Paul Castronovo. That's actually on his driver's license. It causes confusion whenever he's pulled over, which is frequently. But he'll explain all of that and a lot more, which should be a hellaciously fun chat with somebody I have not seen physically in 1,000 years. Thank you for the pandemic for that crap. But let's get to a few other pandemic, sort of not really pandemic, but the social issues that we've talked about all week are worth just a quick review. And here's where things stand going into the weekend. The NBA will be back practicing today in Disney and starting games again in the playoffs tomorrow. And there's an outstanding article in yahoo.com if you want to follow through and kind of get an inside look at what the meetings were like that were held on Wednesday night when things looked really grim, and a meeting that lasted into Thursday morning. And then a later Thursday morning meeting where everybody seemed to have cooled off a little bit. And they hashed out. And you know who was a major intermediary in all of this is Michael Jordan. And not Michael B. Jordan, but Michael Jordan, owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, or whatever the hell they're called now. Anyway, the Charlotte franchise. And he really kind of smoothed things over. He could give you the owner perspective. He gave the player perspective. And for the guy who once was heavily criticized for saying Republicans buy shoes too many years ago, it seems like MJ had a lot to do, or at least a part of what to do. There was, you know who else was heavily involved? Two Miami Heat players, Andre Iguodala and Udonis Haslem. They have cachet in that group of players because they've been around a long time, and their weight and their words really mattered in those meetings on Wednesday and especially on Thursday. So Chris Haynes, yahoo.com, I would really read that if you want to follow up. The NHL will not be playing today. They'll be back on Saturday. They really took a ripping for not joining some of the major league teams who boycotted and the NBA for boycotting the other night. So they sort of decided, okay, maybe we should, and they're taking today off too. The Marlins and the Mets made big noise yesterday, walking on the field and then walking off the field after 42 seconds, designed to represent Jackie Robinson's number, and leaving a Black Lives Matter T-shirt on home plate. And then they walked. There's also some awkwardness. By the way, there were 7 games postponed last night, 8 games that were played. And I would tell you, check your local listings to see what's going to happen today, because some of these cancellations didn't come till 4:30, 5 o'clock. I mean, you had one cancellation literally happen live on the field. And that brings the Mets back into play because there's a big controversy about what their general manager said, not knowing that people heard him, ripping into the commissioner, saying he's not fit for the job. And now the owners are very angry at the GM, and I don't know whether he's going to keep his gig or, just try to duck low and survive all of this. So I think you're pretty well caught up on everything regarding the latest sports controversies, and hopefully no more will break out. And now the thing we need to see is there really going to be any progress out of all of this. And in enlisting the owner's help with the NBA, that's what they're counting on. And they don't get it, we might see this happen again. So the pressure's on the owners. And for the NFL, they don't even know what happened. So that's just how they operate. But I didn't want to waste any time. I wanted to bring on a genuinely close friend. If you guys think that's a radio bit, it ain't. And it's also, I think, been getting close to a year in the calendar for me to actually have been in the same room with this man, which is just an outrage. But I want to welcome that man right there, Radio's own Paul Castronovo, genial host of his own show on Big 105.9. Hi, buddy.
Now, hold on a second.
Yes?
Has it been a year? Because you do have a gift for me that you were supposed to give me like 2 Christmases ago.
We drank it.
Just
so you know, we drank it. We did. My wife finally got, no, it's dead serious. It sat in the kitchen for months, and she goes, we'll get him another one. Just drink it.
Today is National Red Wine Day, I might add.
No.
Yes.
Now, you would know that.
I also knew that it was National Macaroni and Cheese Day a few days ago. And it's just stupid things that we do on morning radio that are so unimportant, but very important when there's nothing to talk about during COVID. So, but wait, why? Because COVID didn't happen
till March,
right? Did we not celebrate on my birthday? Did you not show up at any?
No, I think your boss has banned me, man. I think
Didn't ban you from my personal life.
No, I missed that.
Ah.
I really think, and you know what? I might have been traveling.
I need light. Hold on.
Yeah. I said I might have been traveling. I hate to say this. This is embarrassing because we didn't see each other over the holidays. I think it might have been the Florida Vanderbilt game that weekend. Is that possible?
I'm not going to allow that to creep into my mind because I'll lay awake at night thinking about that. That's terrible because, like you said a minute ago, yeah, you're one of my closest buddies.
Yeah. Now I need light. What the heck is going on around here? Did you turn mine off at the same time you turned yours on?
I don't know.
It's clouds over here. It's the afternoon has begun.
Yeah. I will say this, that one thing happened to both of us in the last year, and our hair colors have changed. They're decidedly white.
It's a mix. It's a white blonde mix now.
We look like NBA coaches. Like
we've aged.
I got these stupid glasses on. I haven't shaved in a week. It's just awful. Dave, we are close friends, and I have said to you, whenever you want to get away and come see us.
Oh God, yeah.
But I'm nervous about COVID, like everybody else, and I want everyone safe. And I've sort of gone into hiding during this thing, and I've had a cottage in Maine for 1,000 years, and I came up here at the beginning of the summer, and watching it from afar, watching what happened in Florida with the numbers going through the roof, and then up here they get 14 cases a day, 22 cases. One guy died a month ago, that kind of stuff. It's as a guy who's, got a couple of, when you're older and you're heavy, I don't like the odds. So I'm staying here until I'm pulled home. So come to Maine.
Understandable. I mean, we have friends of my in-laws who go to the UP, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and one of them works at Channel 10, might know your sister. They haven't been back. They're still up there. He's working distance because he can do his job at Channel 10. And they, now pretty soon it's going to start getting 50 below up there. And I bet they tail it back here not long after that, but they don't see any great reason to go.
To be clear, if anything below 45 degrees, Mr. Castronovo will be heading south for the winter. I'm like a Christmas goose. I'm like a plate of foie gras.
Well, we were just in Laramie, Wyoming last weekend, and we took our COVID tests before because we didn't want to be the parents bring down Wyoming basketball program in quarantine for 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
So we took and we passed our tests. So we head up there, and it was in the 80s during the day and about low 60s at night. But come to realize when the season starts, and if they allow fans, and if we decide to go, it's going to be, it might be 45 below, not below 45 going into Wyoming.
Are you as nervous as I am about your kid going back to college? Like AJ just went back. He lives in a fraternity house with I don't know how many other lunatics. And yes, Dad, I'm wearing my mask. Sure you are. And I remember being 20 as well. And when you're 20 years old, you are invincible. I just don't. I hate to say it, but I feel like he's going to catch COVID. I feel like it's almost inevitable, and I don't want him to be one of the kids that gets. Some of them they don't feel anything. But some kids.
It's funny you say that because I was going to ask you about that because I know that you are nervous about it. Our deal with Drew is he moved up. He's been there now close to 2 months, and he went into a 10-day quarantine in an abandoned was at the time an abandoned dormitory, and they brought everything he needed to him. Now, of course, he's a basketball player. Let's remind people of that. So he's got some advantages that a typical student wouldn't have. Afterwards, he moved to an apartment that's very close to campus with 2 roommates, and when we went there, he made sure everywhere he went, because at 6'8" in a small town, people are going to look at you and go, oh, you must be an athlete. So he was wearing a face covering everywhere we went. If we walked into a restaurant, anywhere we went, Walmart, because we had to get him some stuff. He was very careful of that. His coaches have told him, don't be the idiot who brings down our program. So they have, unlike AJ, who's got a different situation, he at least has people that are keeping watch and making sure. And Wyoming started with classes distance learning for at least the first 2 weeks. And it's a much smaller school than UF also. Just under 14,000 students. So
wow,
there are some advantages.
There are 14,000 students in AJ's kitchen.
Exactly.
At any moment at UF.
I know. So I understand. It's funny you brought that up first because I was absolutely going to ask you about that.
Sorry, I don't mean to take the lead. I'm not used to sitting back and waiting.
That's okay. This is normal. I'm perfectly okay with it working this way. But yeah, and look, I'll tell you about Drake real fast. I think I may have mentioned this when you had me on your show once. He gets there at the beginning of June after driving for 2 days. He moves in. He barely has a chance to take his socks and dirty shirts out of his car. And 2 guys on the basketball team whom he had worked out tested positive. So whoop, immediately into all sorts of quarantines. And he had to move out of his apartment into somebody else's place for, I think, at least 10 days. Now everything seems to be normal for basketball, but the football team just had 21 cases throughout the program at Texas Tech, and they kept practicing.
Oh, that's nice. Do you know what I did when AJ came home from college in the summer, when in the middle of COVID, or when, I guess it was March, April, like it all blends, but he was in Gainesville. I'm like, you need to get out of there. And they were shutting the fraternity house down.
Yeah.
But Gina and I were nervous because he'd been around 1 million people. We put him up in a no-tell motel right on Federal Highway by our house and at first he's like, I'm not staying in some hotel. And then he got there and I put a bunch of, snacks and food in there. He's like, I kind of like having my own apartment. He's going there to pester me. But, he'd been with us for months and months and months. He was ready to go. And I don't blame him. A 20-year-old kid is not supposed to be living under the thumb of his parents. It's just not normal. I mean, when'd you move out? I moved out at 18.
I couldn't afford to. When I went to UF for a year, lived up there, but came home to start working. So the rest of the time I lived at home because I went to BCC for 1 year, which now Broward College didn't have dorms, and we couldn't afford to dorm me at UM. They could get me in there, but I couldn't afford to live down there, so I commuted.
No, see,
I was probably 23, 24.
I was working as
I
was working as a bellhop at the Breakers and going to junior college, and I got a house with a bunch of buddies. It was great, but I mean, it's different. It's a different time, Kids aren't working jobs. If you're going to college, you're pretty much going to college, and that's your job. But I know, we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope he does the right thing, because I can't live his life for him, even though as an Italian mother, I'll try. I mean,
yes, and you're a very good one. We have been reminded, and this is my fault. Our dear friend Stu Opperman said I was at your birthday party, in Boca.
I thought so.
At lunch, I was. I just kept. Yeah,
So I saw you in January, Dave. I must have made quite an impression.
Yeah, you clearly did. Yes, the food was good. I know that. Our dear friend Peter Naska, the man who's taken 505 COVID-19 tests, according to his Facebook post, and has finally announced he's stopping, and seems to be very disappointed when he doesn't test positive. Have you noticed?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Stu and I, we keep in touch via text and the occasional phone call. But usually Stu and I, we don't worry about seeing each other because we know we'll run into each other in Gainesville in the fall. But it looks like I'm going to opt out of my season tickets. They've given us these options, and I don't see the reason. 13,000 or 20,000, whatever you're going to allow in. First of all, I'm not at the booster level. Second of all, I don't want to get sick.
With TJ there, our foster son TJ, for folks who don't know, who plays for the Gators this last year coming up, it's tempting. I suspect I'm going to have a lot of free weekends. I trust them to do it, but it could also be, the old line from Stripes. It's like Wisconsin. You zip in, you zip out. You might just drive up, hey, go team, and all right, TJ, see ya, and then whoop, and then go right home.
I'll do that road trip with you.
That's a possibility because you have the control, and you and I both control people. We want the control.
Let me tell you about Dave LaMont and control. Last time you came up to visit us in Maine when we were here a couple of summers ago, I'm like, let's go out to dinner. And I go to grab the car, and you're like, I don't think so. He will not. You can't go out to dinner with Dave. He has to drive, which works for me because I'm going to sit and knock back 6 Negronis and a bottle of Papas, and I don't have to worry about it.
Right. I'll just have 2 Negronis and half a bottle, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, it is a weird thing for me about that. I'm not a very good passenger, no matter who's driving. And one of the things that happened in Laramie, we stopped in Colorado on the way up and bought him a car. And he insisted, of course, once we got to town, on driving us around. I'm like, okay, I guess you got to try out your new car. And I'm clenched, hoping that the 21-year-old doesn't hit every pothole there is in Wyoming.
Let me give you a quick technical update from Heather, the legendary Heather, from my show, who was going to feed this thing on the Big 105.9 page. Dave's settings only let his live videos be shared with friends.
Not friends with your show. You know what? Could I have even gotten in?
not allowing to share on our page. Oh man.
I wonder if I can fix that really fast while still maintaining eye contact with the camera. I thought I was in there.
Man,
That's what she said. I know. Hang on. Is it the big page or your page?
I'm asking which page, Heather?
Because I don't doubt that you. I know I have liked your page. I'm following
like your
your
page too.
page. Yeah.
She's texting back right now. The three little
Yeah.
yeah.
The dots of death. Talk about death a lot. There's the cone of death, which you invented.
Oh, here it is. Fans of our page are not his friends.
There you go.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's only your friends I'm getting to meet right now, Dave. But maybe we could take the video then and repost it or something later. I
can share it, or you can. I'm sure that's very doable. I have my little YouTube channel there also with a whopping 133 members, which is better. I started with 3.
So are these the questions you wanted to ask me today? Talking about my underwear? What we want to get to Lieutenant Weinberg? What are we going to talk about today? Classic.
Now it says here the big page is shareable. So I don't know. I've got open for comments over here because I can't do them on this page. Technically, as you can see, I've gone all out and putting together a set. The frame on this picture, this thing fell 3 days ago, and the frame completely shattered. So we just hung it by a nail.
Is that Paris behind you? Because
that is Paris behind me.
I think about, this was in January. It was a milestone birthday. That's why we got together. And but Dave, you and I are the same age. And our big plan was springtime. We were going to Sardinia or Italy or some cool place with a bunch of people, like with Anthony and the crew and Bruce Hunter, my wine buddy, and we were going to put together a crew. And then it just went awry, and I feel like like everybody else, we got robbed. And much like going back to the college kids, our sons in college in their junior years this is the worst. Who wants to go to college under that? I told my kid, I said, AJ, if you want to take a gap year and go back later, and he goes, how about if I just slow down a little bit? And I'm like, well, that was the path I was on. I just take a couple of classes here and there, and you can stretch a 4-year college into like 6 years.
Now, and the funny thing, if I'm worried about with Drew, is that he gets cheated out of a junior basketball year. He just got to Wyoming. I mean, after he took a redshirt year at the junior college level, and I'm selfishly pushing for college basketball to begin, if not on time, close to on time, which is starting to look like.
Yeah.
And I don't want him to get screwed. He didn't do anything wrong. I have this overdeveloped sense of fairness in my life about things that I don't think are fair that really make me mad. And same with Drake. I mean, he's a graduate assistant. His playing days are done, but I'd like Texas Tech to have a decent-sized basketball season so he can he got hosed out of the complete NBA experience. He was at what was the final NBA game in March, the one played in Dallas, ended up being the last one, and he was there. And then about 3 weeks later, he's here with his girlfriend. And,
home?
Oh, yeah. In my home?
Where your children play with their toys?
Where he used to play with his toys. And, but that ended up, I'll be honest with you, Paul, that ended up being kind of a gratifying couple of months having everybody here because
I wholeheartedly agree.
She's a wonderful young woman, and she really made it bearable for us by doing a lot of things that we wouldn't do, by taking charge of the kitchen, by making masks. She was remarkable. So we actually played pickleball in the street. She took chalk, and we took a net we had from a pool volleyball game and would play pickleball in the street. And we'd move the net when people would drive by. And we would do that 4 or 5 days a week just because we couldn't. The parks were closed at the time. Everything was shut down. So that was actually kind of fun in a way, even though at times you'd sit there and you wonder, well, am I going to have a job? Am I going to – all the stuff that goes through your brain when you're depending on college and athletics. And it still isn't completely settled. So that wasn't the worst time. But when it was time to go, it was time to go. They weren't,
Get on with your life, kid.
Yeah, get on and love you, but it's time to, you're on to Cincinnati, as Bill Belichick once said.
Do I have any dirt that I can uncover that you want any dirt from me? Anything I can give up?
Well, your current program is pretty fun and clean. You guys, you have Toast and Heather now. things have settled in that department.
Yes, you know, when the old man left, yeah, a lot of people ask me about that, and they're like, well, what happened to the show that you had right after Ron? And I use this analogy, and you can appreciate it. It's a sports analogy, but when a legendary coach leaves, they usually offer up a sacrificial lamb until they bring in the next great coach.
Yeah.
It happened at Florida with Spurrier and poor Ron Zook, who was a great guy, but there was no way. And then they brought in Urban after that. So immediately after young Ron left, it was with a group of very talented, cool ass people. But I had a long time audience that was like, no, that's not what I'm used to. And then, you know, Heather had been hanging around, working in the behind the scenes, but always popping in on the air. And, you know, Toast has been my wingman for a good part of 25 years. So when we had an opportunity to steal him or get him back, I felt it was like a comfort level that the audience felt. And, you know, it really worked out. And we also, you know, we got a program director, someone who really is paying attention to the radio station. And I always felt like, they got Paul and young Ron. Don't worry about the rest of the station. You got Paul. But it's not, you know, we're all a bunch of people. We all work hard, but you can't just ignore. So, yeah, we're having a lot of laughs in the morning now. If you haven't been on, you know, Heather, I can't imagine, like, she must have migraine headaches for how many times she rolls her eyes at me and Toast during the show. And let me also add, Mike Anderson, our producer, is,
I believe it.
Dude, you know, we go back a long way. You know my good producers, right? Tommy Owen, Jenners. This guy is right friggin' there. He is gold, Jerry. Gold. As
no 20-minute Ovaltine routines then?
Oh, man. I watched, at the beginning of the pandemic, I watched the entire Seinfeld series from start to finish twice.
Whoa. We didn't do that. You mentioned, all right, I'll give you my pandemic shows, but I do want to talk about young Ron because people are still fascinated with a guy now who has become a mythical figure because he has disappeared. But my pandemic hits, number one, 55 feet above everything else that we have enjoyed the most has been Schitt's Creek.
My wife's binging it now. She can't get enough of it.
We are already on watching it twice. Really? My wife and I legitimately adore the show. I think it's one of the funniest and most heartwarming shows I have ever seen in my life.
And I think one of the most talented people on that show is Eugene Levy's son, Dan Levy. The guy's a friggin' genius. He really is.
Co-creator, showrunner, writer.
Actor on that show has been nominated for an Emmy this year.
15 of them, and all four. And I think I mean, look, I haven't watched every show that's up, obviously, but if Catherine O'Hara doesn't win, then there's something wrong with the world.
She's brilliant, yeah.
I mean, the way she's taken that character and
I watched
ridiculous.
I watched a couple of episodes with Gina, and it made me go back and watch Best in Show, which is one of my favorite movies, starring Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, and it just tickles me, and that was one of Ron's favorite shows of all time too.
Well, I remember Eugene Levy calling in to your show when they were just starting.
Schitt's Creek, yep.
And
we were nervous about saying Schitt's Creek.
Yep.
But it's spelled SHITT''S, and And
that's when the show was really, and it's never been a big budget program, but it was just starting, and nobody knew if it was going to work. And it's the classic show. It just every year it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it became not just a cult favorite; it became a North American favorite.
Hit, yeah. What is it on? What is it? Is it Netflix?
It is. It was on Pop, which I'd never heard of, and CBC had it too. And I still haven't seen the last season. Netflix hasn't put it on, but I kind of know what happens. But I'm looking forward to seeing it because this is the season that was nominated for all the Emmys. There's that. On Amazon Prime, I like Bosch. Have you seen that, the police drama?
You tell me about it. I haven't seen that one.
I am confident, knowing you, that you'll like it. And you watched Lost. I know you loved Lost.
I did.
Titus Welliver, whatever he was in Lost, he's the lead in Bosch. And he was also in something else, like Deadwood.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. I know who he was. I think he was one of the others in Lost.
He's the lead there. And what I get out of watching him now, I've watched 5 seasons. I'm on the 6th, and there's going to be one more, and then they're going to call it, is that I get the sense that he really likes playing the role. that whatever, and this guy's kind of caustic, old school cop with some skeletons and, but he always gets the job done. But as I'm watching, I'm going, damn, he really likes coming to work. To me, it's obvious when I watch him in the role.
Okay, so do you have Apple TV Plus or Apple Plus TV, Apple TV?
I believe I do.
Okay, so Jason Sudeikis, they've only released 3 or 4 episodes of this show Ted Lasso.
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah.
And Apple just renewed it for another season. If you talk about heartwarming and hilarious, he is so talented. He plays a college football coach. Dave, you're gonna love the show. Who he does something crazy and wins a championship in a smaller college football team, and he goes viral for his dance online. And an English Premier League soccer team owner hires him to coach her English Premier Soccer. So it's a traditional fish out of water. So a couple of good old boys from, I think they're from Wyoming, believe it or not. And
of course,
his buddy go to London, and everybody hates him, but he's winning them over. It's like remember the movie Major League, where some people around here don't think we're supposed to win. It's kind of that scenario.
That
I can't wait until the next episode. They don't throw them all at you. You got to wait a week. So
good. I'll start that.
Ted Lasso is fantastic. I'm sorry, I digress.
And the last one before we talk about young Ron, you had to have seen Fear City on. Did I ask you about that, Fear City?
No.
Oh. It's about one of our favorite subjects, the 5 families. Real.
Oh, I've heard about
how the FBI cracked the RICO, used the RICO Act, and it builds up to that. And I think it's just 3 episodes, and they're 45, 50 minutes each. You could
Netflix.
In your sleep, you could knock them out. Netflix.
Okay, yeah.
And it's really well done because it's the first time I've really heard behind the scenes how they did it, because it's just more than Giuliani and Chertoff, posturing for the cameras, although they are both in the documentary. But it's the guys who were on the ground, the guys who developed these relationships, and even when the mob guys knew they were being bugged, they somehow developed this odd respect for each other. And it shows also how bad things had gotten in New York City, how violent.
That's right up my alley. Yeah, my dad would love that. Before my dad became that was about another thing that sucked during the pandemic. I lost my dad, and in April, but he was worked in the prison system with some of the old, a lot of those guys that were put away, and he knew them all. It was he would have loved that.
He would have loved it because, he would have may have even run into some of those guys, not the mob guys, maybe the guys on the right side of the law. It goes to, it's all the classic names, the Fat Tony and Tony Ducks and
Joe Bananas.
I don't know if Joey Bananas was in this. That's Joey Gallo, right? I don't think Joey
Gallo. Oh, you said Joey Gallo? No, Joey Gallo.
Yeah.
Sorry. You didn't get the reference to my cousin Vinny. Sorry.
I was thinking of the real one. All right. Young Ron Brewer. For those who don't, let's catch up everybody very quickly because I know we got a lot of South Floridians watching, but there may be other folks. My friend Paul here hosted for quite some time, 25 years pretty much.
28 years.
28, a highly successful morning show with a gentleman named Young Ron Brewer. 2 very unique personalities. You can already tell that Paul is very outgoing. And what you see here is Paul's radio personality. He's not an actor in any way, shape, or form. You're getting Paul when you listen to the radio. Young Ron was a different case in a way. And so the blend of these opposite personalities, plus their ability to play off each other, plus their willingness to take chances, plus Ron's remarkable sense of humor and comedic timing that very few comedians have, really made for a hilarious show. I was a part of that show off and on for quite some time, so I got to see the inner workings and enjoy some of the fruits of their successes, which they were very generous to share. Young Ron retired a few years ago after kind of fading gently, and I think it was wise for him to retire. And the interesting thing now is he has just poof.
Dude, let me tell you something. He came to me and said, I'm done. And he was completely 100% comfortable with that decision. And I said, well, let's throw a big going away party, which I look back on, it was sort of like my party. All my buddies showed up.
It was, yes. I don't think Marino and Brewer are that tight.
Yeah, I mean, Bert Kreischer and, you and Dave Barry and McGill and all, but everybody, they were all part of the family that we built up over the years. So we're at the Hard Rock, improv at the Hard Rock, the old Hard Rock before they put the guitar up. And it was our last show. And we didn't know if anyone was going to be there, but we said it was going to be open to the public. And when we got there at 4:30 in the morning, there was a line from the front of the improv all the way back to the casino. And we were so touched by that. So we killed the 4 hours. I mean, and my favorite moment of the entire morning was the next day in the Sun Sentinel when they had a picture of Ron looking at his watch, because he couldn't wait to get out of there every day. And even on his final show, he was ready for it to end. So after the show, we went and we signed autographs for a good hour. And then both of us ended up in the men's room washing up. We were washing the COVID off our hands. We didn't know it at the time.
No, you didn't know it. That's where it started, actually.
Probably. And I said, well, I guess this is it. And I gave him a hug in the bathroom, which was awkward anyway. And he goes, oh, yeah, I'll be talking to you. And that was in 2016. And not a word. Now, I want to tell you something. Since then, I have reached out with texts, pictures, memories, phone calls, and no response. I called our agent and I said, well, what's the story? I haven't heard from him. Have you talked to him? He said, well, he's kind of done with that part of his life, is what he told him. And for the life of me, I don't know. And I think Toast even called him and said, hey, man, you want to surprise Paul for his birthday? And he was like, no, I'm good. So I don't know what's going on inside that mind of it. I know that
he's alive.
John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora didn't talk for 5 years.
You know what? Penn and Teller, whom I love those guys. I've seen their live show in Vegas a couple of times. They don't hang out. Yeah. They show up, they do their show, they rehearse, but at the end of the day, it's not like, hey, buddy, let's go grab a burger over at the Mandalay. They don't do that. Yeah. And they've been working together so long that they have a great respect for each other, but they don't have a personal relationship. And you hear about this, who were the guys?
Wait a minute, because the difference is, though, he was in my wedding.
Well, that's true. And I'm just thinking, what was the Mythbusters? Those guys didn't get along. They don't get along now. But yet they managed to perform a service together, a show that was highly successful. And
I tell people this, the Beatles had a good 10-year run. We went 28 years.
Yeah. Well, when I was on the show regularly and Ron was at his peak, and there was this air of mystery around him, and people would say, come on, tell me, what's he really like? And I'd always say the same thing. I said, well, there's two things. One, so the biggest thing you need to know about young Ron is some of the things you hear on the radio are absolutely true. Some of them are false, but I'm not going to tell you which is which. And you're going to have to sit there and figure it out, because you'd hear things and you go, come on.
There's no way, right.
And then that would be true. And then there are other times that you might be doing something for a laugh.
Okay, here's one that's true. I did knock his door one time and he answered the door in a house coat.
True. I believe that.
Yes.
And a couple of times I would walk in not knowing, especially when I was doing my show at WYOD, and then the last hour I would walk down the hall and have some real fun. And I'd walk in sometimes in the middle of something. And this is back in radio when you could carry a bit over instead of now where things are constantly changing because the audience is changing. And I'd walk in and I'd go, holy crap, I don't know what's going on here exactly. I'm going to have to figure this out on the fly. But are they yanking me here, or is this real? And it was a great challenge for me because nobody would tell me, except every once in a while somebody would pull me, look, this is what's going on. This is what you need to know. So you're not totally blind.
He didn't know any of our coworkers' names. He did not want to take other young children to breast and nurse them.
Thank God.
Yeah. But other than that, it was a great run, and I'm sad. I would love to be able to, go. I don't know if he drinks anymore. I hope he does.
No, I hope he doesn't. Because he did come to a point where he stopped, and it was also funny when I got fired from WIOD, which got to be like 2008. I had been doing, for those who know, I had been put on a news program, which really wasn't my speed, and ultimately I was kind of glad it was over. But I also spent time with Paul and young Ron for fun, and I remember I went out of town. I think the next day we had scheduled a trip to Washington, D.C. with our kids. We took them there, and I got a beautiful voicemail from him, a really nice voicemail, warm, and it was a pleasure working with you, and let me know if I can, all these things. It was so I was sort of banned from the building for about 18 months, and I started slowly coming back. You guys would bring me in like once every 2 weeks, and then I started showing up a lot. And he was never the same to me after that, and I never did figure out why.
I think Ron and I had philosophical differences on how to run the show, and I wanted to make it like a big round table of friends that came and went, and I think he liked to keep it the way he liked, the Paul and Ron and maybe a goofy sidekick or whatever. But who knows what was right and what wasn't. But I'm thankful for the people I've met throughout because of my show, including you and Chef Pagano and Ron McGill and and Dorfman and all the crazies that have come throughout the years. So I'm happy with the method that I chose to run the show.
Yeah, I think it had to. I think it was a good way to do it because Ron became less communicative. You needed somebody to talk to, and these were people that all had. I mean, Ron McGill is famous, for his years on Sábado Gigante, plus there's all his contributions at Zoo Miami and everything that he's ever done. Ralph Pagano, his story will one day be a movie. And in fact, you were the one who called and told me what happened on a Friday night at 11 o'clock. And I thought, nobody calls me Friday at 11 o'clock and to tell me that Ralph had been nearly killed in an explosion. And all of the other people
Bahamas.
in Bimini, right?
Yeah.
It was this place in Bimini that ultimately obviously never happened and nearly cost Ralph his life. These are experiences that we've shared because of these people, meals with Dave Barry, who had, is exactly what you think Dave Barry is. Another guy who is who he is.
The fact that Dave Barry takes our phone call is, I pinch myself. I mean, he's so far not that guy, but Dave Barry will go to dinner and then the next day he's with Steve Martin. That's how cool he is.
And Brad Meltzer, who's become a great friend of yours and one of the biggest selling authors of all time, and absolutely one of the sweetest.
Can we ask a question?
Ever.
How much money does he have? I can't get it out of him.
I wonder what he gets per book.
I don't. Celebrity net worth says he's worth $10 million.
Oh.
Is that too high?
Too low.
Really?
Don't you think?
I don't know. I don't know what authors make.
I still think they run that TV show, which I missed the hell out of Decoded that he did. I loved that show.
Oh, great. Yeah, he's got a PBS. He's got a cartoon PBS series based on his books. You're right. He's killing it.
Yeah, we're going up with that one.
This is why when we dine together, I refuse to ever reach for my wallet. If you're in that stratosphere, you should never have your friends pay.
The thing that's nice about Brad is I might only see him once or twice a year, but he always treats me as if we're long friends.
And it's part of the little family that we built on the
right.
Paul and Ron show. You're right.
Right. And he is a real gentleman and somebody whose success he gives back. He is not somebody that's gone to his shaved head, his success. Something else that I wanted to talk about, and I've been thinking about doing this for a while on Facebook, but you're the perfect person because we have very common musical tastes.
Let's go.
We drift occasionally, but that's to be expected.
Of course.
I was thinking about the four biggest musical trios of all time, at least in my book. I'm talking about guys not like Crosby, Stills, Nash because they had a band behind them. I'm talking about these three are it. So it would be the Police, Cream, which started it all.
No question.
Rush, and our favorite little old band from Texas. And I thought, if you could only pick three, and you could pull an all-star band out of that, how impossible is that? Let
me ask: was Creedence Clearwater Revival a three-piece? Maybe not.
I don't know. I think there was four. I think there were two guitars, bass, and drums.
Wait, did you hear that? After 60 years or whatever the number's been, they all have finally put their differences aside. And they've created. I read this yesterday on Ultimate Classic Rock. They've created and formed a union, a business, and they are going for it. I guess maybe the guys are broke or whatever, but they want to make money, and they're going to do film. They're going to do books. They're going to do music, and they're going to tour. So they're all. This to me is one of the most exciting things ever in rock and roll to see what Creedence could come up with now.
I didn't know that. I knew that John Fogerty had formed a band with his daughter.
Yeah.
And that he finally years ago got over that I'm never playing Creedence crap again, and has been out, playing the hits and playing like residencies in Vegas that are selling out. He's done pretty damn well for himself once he turned solo. But out of that, how do you build an all-star band? Who's your guitar player? You've got Clapton.
Oh, you want to take the best player from each one of those bands? Oh,
how do you pick between Sting and Geddy Lee as a bass player, vocalist? Now Sting's a better vocalist.
Is this at the top of their game? I think the guitar player is Billy Gibbons. As much as we all say Clapton was God, because they all look at Gibbons like, oh my, this guy is a monster.
Billy Gibbons gets us. He doesn't know this, of course, but he gets us.
Yeah, it's so true.
He does. He
probably knows it.
You told me to watch that documentary, and I did early in the pandemic. And they played a song. The first song they played was like the first song they ever played. It was some 60s thing I'd never heard of. And it was just dirty. And I mean that as a comp, it was just like, oh, crap.
Crunchy.
In. Yes.
Yet, all right. So,
see, and you're leaving Alex Lifeson, who had to carry such a big weight in Rush, and he has these acid rock, Zappa-esque solo run. I mean, and Andy Summers is underrated.
Why would you even make something? I will not take a nap today because I'll be awake. Regina's done. When we have wine tonight, she's going to be like, I don't care.
No, you're going to be muttering, Jack Bruce, underrated. I don't know.
And that's the thing. I have to say that Cream was, granted, I played their songs on the radio, but they were just a hint before my time. They were the 60s group and early 70s, 60s, early 70s. So I don't know I don't have an intimacy with the players other than the music. Now, that being said, God, Clapton, that trio, right.
The best part about that is why I think that's almost the best Clapton is that at that point, he's got nobody else to rely on. He has to handle the solos. He has to let go. He can't be the dour, oh, I really don't like to take long solos. No, sorry, buddy. You're it. Get out there and play.
By the way, there's another band that they don't like each other, and then the Police. Sting hates everybody. Thankfully, ZZ Top maintained all these years. They've been together. They're like the Rolling Stones of
and Rush
groups. And Rush, yeah,
and Rush because they, when Neil Peart took time off to grieve, and I'm reading that book right now. As a matter of fact. They didn't do anything. They didn't hire a drummer and go on the road. They said, you do what you got to do, and we'll be here when you're ready to come back.
I heard Red Barchetta the other day, and I forgot how damn good that song was.
On the Facebooks, I belong to a Rush fan group, and there is a drum cam version of that I just watched yesterday when it's just him.
I was an uber Rush fan in high school, and I just and through college, but I sort of faded. I haven't listened to Rush in ages, but every now and then, part of the problem is when you're in radio, it's all about Tom Sawyer and Limelight and the same ones over and over again. And then, it's digging deep into the album cuts that I appreciate. It's like with the ZZ Top. I don't care if I ever hear Sharp Dressed Man again, but there's so much other deep stuff that shows their talents. And yeah, I love it. Well, how about this one? If Leonard Skinner hadn't crashed in the plane,
I know.
They would have gone on to be the greatest American rock band, bar none.
I would have wondered this, and I have thought about this, and I guarantee you've thought about it because we've seen every Skinner documentary out there, all three of them, and you've interviewed members of the surviving members of the band. I wonder how they would have gone through not the disco era, because they were in the disco era before the accident in the mid 70s, how they would have gone through that synthesizer era of the 80s and the grunge of the 90s. They would still have been popular, or they would have, does Ronnie start doing solo records? I wonder how they would have survived that. Or would they have been kind of like the Allmans and stayed on the fringe and kept touring? And then now by the time Greg Allman was forced to hang it up, there was a great appreciation for their abilities because they brought these two ridiculously kick-ass guitar players that they had at the end of the band, which they had at the beginning of the band with Warren Haynes and Derek Trucks. And I think people started to really understand how great the Allmans were. I wonder if that would have been the same arc for Skynyrd, that they would have stayed kind of popular, but not really,
The difference with Skynyrd was that, different than the Allman Brothers, they were writing hit records. And the Allman Brothers were, they only had one hit, really, a true radio hit in Ramblin' Man. And Skinner's last album was huge. So who knows how many more hits they could have gone on to, kind of forge. Look at the Rolling Stones. They didn't go away during grunge. They just sat there and did what they did.
They did, and their tours didn't shrink either. They weren't playing 2,000 seats. They were playing
bands, like the bands that were at that level, like the Who, the Stones, and they weren't affected by the grunge. I think that the bands that were affected by grunge were some of the glam metal stuff. They just kind of people looked at that and went, "Okay, Cinderella, nice to see you."
That's fair.
What do I know?
No, you're right though. The hair bands. I mean. Yeah, that's a good point. All of the hair bands or those bands who had the one big ballad like Night Ranger, those kind of bands that couldn't sustain success. You're right. Skinner was only getting better.
Correct.
And when they had that act.
When they brought Steve Gaines in, the Okie, he wasn't a Southern boy, but he was from Oklahoma, and he could play. He was teaching the other guys things. They were learning from Steve Gaines. And Robbie loved him so much that he let him sing on a couple of their albums.
Right. And he was talking about Control Freaks. So you come to find out how he ruled that band.
He would beat your ass if you didn't play well in practice.
After a couple drinks, he would go after anybody. And
the latest movie, the Artemis Pyle did a film about the plane crash. It's out now on Prime Video. And they have actors playing the roles of all the Skinner members, and it's you have to see it.
No, I haven't seen that.
You need to. It's not well acted, but some of it is really good, and some of it is just like it's like a made-for-TV movie. But if you're a Skinner guy, you have to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get it. I'll find it. The 3-hour one, or there's one that runs about 3 hours, maybe with commercials, is probably the best one where they interview some of the guys who were in the plane. Yeah. Artemis Pyle being one of them. Ed King wasn't in the plane; he was gone by then. But
one of the things that really pains me the most about Skinner is when I must have been 16, 17 years old, and they played Miami Baseball Stadium. And my buddy Guy DeLuca and I worked our way up to the front row. And I claimed this on the air that I was involved in the first mosh pit in history. It was there because I remember this. We were all kind of in the front doing this, and then the guys were elbowing each other, and then it became this crazy thing. But I watched the whole show from the front row. I can't find even an aerial photograph. I can't find a video, anything of that show at Bobby Maduro Stadium, of that Skinner show. It's making me crazy. I don't know where. It's got to be out there. There are pictures of the Beatles everywhere landing in the States, and that was 25 years earlier or whatever. So I don't know.
Well, nobody at the moment realizes back then. Now you can monetize that. You can sell. There's things you can do that people didn't think of back then. The Beatles, maybe you could, if you sold a photograph of George smiling at you, you could make a few $100. Nobody thought about that with Skinner to some of the other shows. I mean, I went to a few. I didn't see that show, but I saw some shows at Baseball Stadium. I think we were both there when Poco got booed off the stage.
Was that Poco and the Doobie Brothers in Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone didn't quite fit that bill. And
one of these things is not like the other.
No, and that was.
By the way,
was that Michael McDonald's first tour with the Doobies? Was it not?
Oh man, I don't remember, Dave.
And Tom Johnston wasn't there. I did not see Tom Johnston with the Doobies till we saw them at Sunfest 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow. Stat of the day. That's a stat. And how about this? Another thing that COVID ruined, Michael McDonald has rejoined the band, and they were going to do a national tour, and they even had a date at Coral Sky Amphitheater.
I know.
And they pulled the plug on it, obviously. But I'm hoping, like Elton John said, as soon as it's over, I'm going back on tour. And it was his farewell tour.
He was retired.
Yes.
Well, did you see the Dave Mason video, Feeling All Right?
No.
Oh, he did. He put together, and it's all done, not virtually, distance, of the old Traffic song when he was in Traffic, Feeling All Right, in which he does a kick-ass live version of. And he's in there. You need to go find it, and it'll take you all of 30 seconds if you type in Dave Mason Feeling All Right. And where do you see the people he lined up in there, including a certain gray-haired vocalist who is often associated with yacht rock, who just cuts frickin' loose.
Oh, I can't wait.
He still sounds great.
My Dave Mason moment is Dave Mason played the Dreher Park Zoo in West Palm Beach when I was growing up. And it was just like an August show, and that son of a gun passed out on stage and carried off, and he never came back.
He lives down here, doesn't he?
You know, I interviewed him, and I maybe 5, 6, 7, 10. I don't know. It all blends in. And I asked him about that. He goes, "Yeah, I think I learned my lesson, man. Don't play outside in Florida in the heat." But he probably does. Who doesn't live here? They all live here. Bon Jovi just bought a friggin' mansion in Palm Beach.
He can afford these things. All right, here's my Dave Mason story. As a younger man, you mentioned the biggest concert in the 70s in Miami was Frampton on the tour after the live album. That was the concert to see. And I wasn't allowed by my parents to see it in the mid 70s. Wasn't allowed. I didn't see a concert till I left home and went to UF for my freshman year. And the first performer I ever saw live stroll out on that stage at the old Alligator Alley, Dave Mason.
Oh, okay.
So the very first concert I ever saw was Dave Mason opened for Kenny Loggins when Loggins had left.
What year was that?
77.
Okay. A couple of years later, I watched a guy named B.B. King walk out on that stage at the Alligator Alley and open for a band called the Allman Brothers. That could have been the greatest concert I ever saw, but it was so long ago that and I was probably wasted.
I saw Steve Martin there.
And by the way, that was 1977, so you were in college then.
Yeah, I missed that show.
Yeah.
Why, I don't know. But I saw Steve Martin in 1977 or 78.
I mean, when he was doing the whole wild and crazy guy thing? Wow.
This gigantic. And you remember that place was no assigned seating.
Yeah.
So I was there like 5 hours ahead of time.
Wow.
And this gigantic 100% white. The only thing that wasn't white on the bus were the tires. And you remember he always wore the white suit.
Yeah.
Pulls up, we're behind the park, and it was his bus. And yeah, that's actually the tour where he said, you know what, I'm done with this crap. I'm not doing any more of these big ass shows. This is not what I'm all about. And he retired after that.
Yeah. So that year was the same year, I believe, that Jimmy Buffett opened for the Eagles at the stadium.
No, Buffett had his big coming out show there when he had Little River Band and somebody else opening for him at Miami Baseball Stadium.
No, I'm talking about in Gainesville. I'm sorry.
I didn't see that. That thing, I was gone by then. I would have gone to that. This is my horrifying confession. I've never seen the Eagles. I've seen Henley, but never the Eagles.
Are you kidding?
I've seen Timothy B. Schmidt in Jimmy Buffett's band at
that's okay.
Marine Stadium.
I've seen the Eagles numerous times, but I never saw Paul McCartney. So I'm embarrassed to say. Yeah, I know you. Didn't you tell me you saw the warm up and he did Lovely Rita or something like that, or Eleanor Rigby?
No, I was down at American Airlines Arena, and it was I had to get a soundbite from Dwayne Wade about something, and so I'm going through the bowels of the arena, and McCartney's playing there the next day, and I'm noticing, and I thought, but they have security at every entrance on the lower floor. I couldn't have walked in there with a tank, and so I'm walking around and. The building was still new, and I didn't know my way out. All of a sudden, I hear them rehearsing the beginning of Eleanor Rigby. Look at all the, and I went, oh,
yep.
You're like, you couldn't speak English at the moment, realizing, and I, they wouldn't let me stay. And then it was really, really tight security. But no, Buffett,
his band, Paul McCartney's band. They've been with him forever since Wings broke up, and I was sitting at the bar at the Eden Rock. I used to hang out at the Eden Rock with Gina, and we were there for a long weekend. And I remember it was after a Dolphin game, and I said, "Hey, I'm sitting next to this guy at the bar. I go, weren't you playing guitar on the field during halftime yesterday at the Dolphin game?" He goes, "Yeah, so and so." I go, "But aren't you in Paul McCartney's band?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm his guitar player." And we became friendly for, like texting over. I had him on the show, but he is a shredder. I mean, I can't.
You better be.
Yeah.
By the way, if there's certain music, like if you get that phone call, would you ever say no? What would ever make you say no? Paul, can't do it. Don't feel like playing Beatles songs and
yeah.
God, I've got some club dates lined up. Yeah, I just don't like playing the commercial stuff.
Is there a band that you right now, if they told you that they were going to be out, that you would risk your health to go see?
Foo Fighters.
Wow, you would go and Would you stand
in less than a minute?
Would you wear a mask the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think when Rob, the producer, was your producer, I was his +1 for the Foo Fighters show now 2 years ago up in West Palm at the outdoor. And Paul, I'm telling you, it'd be in my top 2 or 3 greatest nights ever list, because if you remember, when we were younger, going to a concert was the single coolest thing you could do. And it felt like the entire world stopped. As far as you were concerned, nothing else in the other 49 states mattered. There was nothing else you could have done except be there. That's all that counted.
Yeah.
And that's what the Foo Fighters made me feel like. They made me feel like, holy crap, I'm 24 again. This is it. I don't give a hoot what else is going on in the world. There's nothing you could have offered me. Not a gourmet meal at the finest restaurant in Rome or Paris or any of that stuff.
Maybe that
would have beaten that experience that night.
I think that Dave Grohl is a throwback, and I think that he gets the fans. He understands. And you know what? He's a fan. I mean, you can tell his reaction. He loves it. Yeah, the fact that he's a fan. Yeah, you're right. He's the best rock star maybe ever born.
And I'll tell you this: there was a moment, and I have it on my camera, but it's a phone camera. And so, for those who don't know, this place in West Palm is an outdoor place, but about half of is covered for the better seats, and there's a lawn area where you can sit outside, and there's screens, so it'll help you see. So he starts addressing the people on the lawn. He says, "All right, MFers, let me see your phones. Turn on your lights." Everybody in the audience turns on. So I turn around, and you've been to that place. Every single person of the thousands who were back there had their phone flashlight on, and it was a stunning effect.
Dave.
And I went, that's it. He's got this audience. They'll do whatever he asks him to do. You can't beat that. I'm getting excited thinking about it now.
Last time I was at the Coral Sky, it was last summer. And I think it was last summer. It's hard to remember, but Jason Bonham, who I'm very friendly with, invited me to come see his show, and he was opening up for Frampton. And I hadn't seen Frampton since I was a teenager. And I felt bad for Frampton because Jason's set, it blew them off the freaking stage. But there was a moment there when I realized I was sitting there, and Jason goes, well, why don't you go after my set? Why don't you walk over to the side of the stage and just watch Frampton? And I think I may have taken a picture of the set list. I was standing there. It was taped on the floor next to me. And Peter, he walks out. He goes, hey, guys. And we're like, hey, I think he thought we were roadies. My buddy Tommy B and I were hammered and just standing on the side of that. And we were like, are they going to throw us out? I felt like a little kid because who gets to do that? And, I watched half of Frampton's set and all of Bonham's set. And then we just went in the back and hung out with Jason and his crew. And you know who else was there? Nick Collins, Phil's son.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I met him. Yeah.
Really cool.
Real
talent. Yeah. He's going to be a major star one day.
No question. I mean, look, playing the most famous drum fill of all time that your father, who's sitting in front of you singing, created, in itself has got to be an unbelievable thrill.
Please tell me you saw the video of the two kids watching listening to In the Air Tonight for the first time.
Yes, I did.
Isn't that what music is all about, man? Those kids, I wanted to call up and hang out with them, man. They were so cool.
As long as, as long as guys like you and I don't ever lose that same feeling when we listen to music, we'll be fine, as far as all of that goes. A few people, we have some celebrity watchers. Ron McGill is one of them. Our dear friend Kelly Craig.
What?
Yep. And Lamar Thomas. They're all watching.
Lamar.
I know. The guy who abandoned Gainesville and went to the University of Miami.
But don't get me started on Lamar Thomas. There are levels of hatred I have for someone. And I love him like a brother. And the last time we had dinner together, then he moved to Kentucky. He's out. He moved.
Yeah. Yeah. He was coaching there for a little while, but all of them.
If the University of Miami doesn't hire him as a coach someday, I'm making some phone calls to Dan Mullen. We'll get him in Gainesville eventually. As far as Kelly Craig goes, Kelly, I love you. And I abruptly hung up on her about 2 weeks ago in a conversation. We were in the middle of something. I had to go. And but she was just telling me she was moved to Naples. And then and McGill, right before COVID, a bunch of us got together and celebrated his big birthday. And it was I haven't seen Dan Le Batard in ages. And, I always loved him. And we were always broadcasting at the same time. We never saw each other, but we got together with Ari Adzer and
wow.
The cast and crew for his birthday, and Kerry Sanders. It was just a great time.
Yeah, beautiful. And you know what? I've kept you for an hour, so that's more of your time than as always. You've been generous with me. You always have been generous with me, and had me accompany you on many adventures that I will.
Oh yeah, we got more to come, buddy. More to come.
I can't wait. Either I'll get up there soon, or I'll wait till
I'll be home in a couple of weeks
till the temperature drops.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for being here, folks. You can follow this. I'm going to send it to YouTube a little bit later on today, or you can watch it again anytime you want on this channel. Thanks to Heather also, who couldn't be a nicer person, even though she doesn't want people to know that.
There it is. You nailed it.
Yeah. Sorry, Heather. I told the secret, the dirty secret, but I actually want to talk to her one day too, because she's an interesting person to talk to. And some of the adventures she's gone on in her life are fascinating. And also going to have Toast and the OB boys on as we get closer to UM's opener.
Oh, good.
My love to Gina, Paulie. Thank you, my friend.
Say hi to Jen, TJ, Drake, Drew, the crew, the LaMont family, from the Castronovos to yours. Have a hectic day.
Love you, buddy.
Live from Freeport, Maine, I'm Paul Castronovo for the Dave LaMont Show. I love a nooner.
All right, that's it, guys. I'll see you Monday. Have a wonderful, safe, mask-filled weekend. Take care.